Welcome to the Improve Work podcast. I'm your host, Daniela Tancău, an HR consultant helping entrepreneurs and team leaders build motivated, high-performing teams. Here we talk about leadership, employee motivation, and other topics that enhance your ability to lead. Whether you are an entrepreneur with a team, a business owner planning to build one, or a leader in a company. You'll gain practical advice and insights from me and my guests, experts in the field and entrepreneurs who share their leadership experiences. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe to stay updated on every episode. Let's dive into today's topic. Hi everyone, today's episode guest is Steven Puri. Steven is the founder and CEO of the Sukha company, a company that created and developed an app for those who work remotely. This app helps them find their focus, achieve better results, and maintain a healthy work life. Steven has a remote team himself, and his first experiences with remote work started when he worked in the film industry, where he held multiple roles, including Vice President of Development and Production at 20th Century Fox and Executive Vice President at DreamWorks Pictures. But I'll let you find out more about this in my conversation with him. Steven shares with us in this episode his experiences with remote work challenges and its advantages, and how this app helps those who work remotely organize their workday in a way that suits best for them, become more efficient, find their flow and focus, and free up time for themselves. So if you have a remote team, a hybrid one, or you yourself work remotely, listen to this episode. Hi, Steven. Welcome to the show. I'm glad that you are here to share with us your insights. We'll talk about remote work.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me on. And I know it's Friday afternoon for you, so work is already improving.
Yes, it's a little bit challenging for me, but I'm handling. So what is your experience with remote work? How did you start to experience this? And where are you now with this experience?
So what I found interesting, and one of the things I wanted to share is I had worked as a software engineer when I was very young. I was in college. I worked at IBM. And it was a great way to make money and, pay for school and things like that. And then I got into film, and I worked in film for a number of years. Then I got back into running tech companies. And what's interesting is the whole concept of calling it, even the label, work from home, remote work, hybrid work, work anywhere, all these terms became very popular around the pandemic, when suddenly a lot of companies were forced to figure out, how does this work? And, Zoom blew up and Slack blew up and all these companies. So when I had done right before the pandemic, 2 small tech companies, they were entirely remote. We didn't think that much of it. I mean, the advantages to me as a leader, global talent pool. If I found an amazing designer in Montreal, fantastic. If there was an engineer that I loved in Madrid, fantastic. No commute times. No one had to drive to an office, sit in traffic, waste their brain doing that. There's flexibility. There's a quality of life thing. So that was great. What was interesting to me is, as this became this heated topic around, well, everyone needs to return to office. Oh, well, maybe there's a way to do hybrid. Film, where I had spent almost 2 decades working in film, already had the entire spectrum of remote, hybrid, in real life, in-person work, but it was never called that. And I'll give you an example. When you start a movie, most ideas begin with a writer, right? Writers are working remotely. They're in coffee shops. They're over at their friend's house, and the 2 writing partners are writing together in the living room. It's like this all thing of remote work. They go to meet a producer to try and sell their idea. They go to a restaurant for lunch or something like that, or breakfast at a diner, right? So you have this entirely remote culture that then, once the idea gets a little traction, you start to get a production office and you hire a director. And suddenly 1 or 2 days a week, you have a hybrid work, office where you're going in. Maybe there's a production designer who's hired. So, they want to know, what should it look like? Or the costumer is hired, wants to come in and starts to do the costumes. So it works in this hybrid thing And then, you're on set at a certain point for $100,000+ a day. Everyone's there all day long, all night long. It's really, really hard, right? And you do that for a few months of principal photography. And then it goes back to hybrid, where you have editors and sound editors and Foley artists, doing work. You're coming in and out, and then it goes back to remote. And it's finally, you work towards distribution and marketing and the release of the movie. So that entire arc of remote to hybrid to in-person to hybrid to remote has been done in film for decades, but people don't really talk about it because it's sort of like, if you talk to a fish about water, it's like, what's water? It's what you have. So that was really the interesting thing for me is with the companies that I run and the teams that I lead, a lot of the lessons that have been really helpful for me come from film, where it's not a new idea. Hope that makes sense.
Yes, yes. And now, do you have a remote team?
Yeah. So now we have no office, no headquarters. Again, there are some companies this will not work for. If you're IBM and you need to have a headquarters with shareholder meeting, like there are reasons to have an office. I'm not saying don't have any office, but my current company, completely remote. It happens that my co-founder lives driving distance. Like I could get to, his house in one day, but we don't actually see each other that often. We're usually, on Zoom or in Slack. Same with the engineers that we work with, the developers. So yes, we really have embraced like the remote work.
Mhm. And if you have to compare these uh, two or three types of work, working in an office, working remotely, and a hybrid type, what type do you prefer? What is more suitable for you personally?
What I find is this: is it's almost like you have colors on your palette and you're painting. And before the pandemic, maybe we had a lot of reds and yellows, things like that. You could paint sunny days and you could paint, this some colors, of things. And then with understanding how remote works, it's like another color on your palette. Something you have blue and you can paint lakes, you can paint the ocean, you can paint deep blue skies, right? It is not that the red and yellow are not valuable. It's just now you have the option of saying, what's the right thing for this? Because, for example, I fully believe there are some activities that are best in person. There are some things when you want to feel the vibe in the room, whether it was in film, sometimes you're working on a story point and you just want to, like you and I sit around with the director around a table and we're having coffee and we're talking about what would happen in the third act. What would the hero do that would be the culmination of their journey? And it's fun to feel the vibe in the room. It's really hard to do that on Zoom, you know? But there are other things that are absolutely great. Like we do our stand-ups on Zoom. It's really easy to go, hey man, here's what I'm working on. Here's what I got done. Here's where I'm blocked. If anyone has any ideas, I'd love some thoughts. There is no need to drive to an office to give a 5-minute update, right? So I enjoy the whole spectrum because I love being in person with people. I'm not like you have to work remotely at all times. You can never see other people. I just think that it is super valuable to have that flexibility most of the time. And some of the time you want to be hybrid, some of the time you want to be together. So that's how we work now.
Mhm. So you prefer a combination, not a
Yes.
single style. Mhm, mhm.
And I'm glad that there's a much more awareness of like a work from anywhere mentality. And I think that the more the idea spreads that work is what you do, it's not where you do it, the more leaders are less scared, and some problems that leaders have about embracing, a hybrid schedule or a remote schedule is they don't trust their employees, to be honest, right?
Yes,
And you've seen
this is an issue,
this is an issue, and
possible issue.
there is some credibility to that. I would say that the problem is not work from home, work remote, work hybrid, it's hiring. If you're actually hiring people and you don't believe they're going to work if you're not standing over their desk, are you hiring the right people? Are they really engaged in your mission? You know? So I think hiring is a really key part of making that work, as well as the right tools to, keep people together. What were you going to say?
From your point of view, what kind of people are best suitable for this kinds of position remotely? What do you look when you want to hire a person in your own company? in a remote position?
I'll tell you, this is just a general thing about hiring. This is maybe not even specific to remote. It is, after hiring a lot of people, having to fire people. And there is a value to saying quickly, you know what, this is not right, rather than just letting it linger. It affects the culture. If you let people that don't fit in just stay there, it brings everyone down. So there's both sides, there's hiring and firing. The thing that I look for more than anything is, do they believe in ultimately how we are changing the world? Do the values that they hold personally mirror the values that we have? Because you can't really incentivize someone with money, with stock, with things like that. Like, those are kind of fake incentives. Yes, I could pay you $1 million to go work on our app with me. But fundamentally, you don't think it's changing the world in a good way. You don't care. I could hire someone else for $1 million who really believed in this, and they would just run circles around you. In which case I would go, why did I hire Daniela? Right? Mm-hmm. So I think the first thing is, do they believe in the mission? And then I'm a big believer in talking to people that they've worked with, because like anyone that works with me should talk to people with whom I've worked. Mm-hmm. People have patterns, they have personalities. Some personalities work well together. It's like marriages. You can take someone that gets divorced, but then meet someone that actually fits together with them better. And their second marriage is great. I'm on my first marriage. I'm hoping this works, so far everything's good. But I think that there is that sense of make sure the values are aligned, make sure you understand with whom, you're getting in business with, because working together is a very intimate relationship. You spend a lot of your time working, thinking about work, earning money. And if it's fundamentally with people that you don't get along with, it just affects your spirit. It just brings you down. I want to have people around me that all look at each other and go, this is an amazing team. Like, I'm proud to be here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Secondary to that, like skills and things like that. I assume that if you're hiring a developer, you're going to check that their skills are good.
So this is not dependent on the type of work. It's in an office or remotely. You look for their alignment with your company's mission and vision.
That's the primary thing. Yeah. And I find that there are, for example, that I run a platform that literally helps people work from home to focus and feel happier and get their work done earlier, right? So I have the data of talking to a lot of members that are attracted to this and want to pay for this tool. I'll tell you what's interesting is our membership, almost everyone is one of three professions or skill sets: developers, writers, that means both book authors, bloggers, and designers, graphic designers, UI, UX designers. And what's interesting is the more I've gotten to know dozens of them over time, is because they are, college educated, like they have knowledge work to do. It's obviously, if someone was installing telephone poles, this is not a work from home kind of job, right? And they have a couple of hours a day where they need to be like heads down, try to be in a flow state. And if they do, it changes everything, changes their life. I'll tell you, I named my company because I was on my honeymoon. Well, I met my wife and Laura. We met in yoga. And yoga has had a big effect on my mindfulness, sort of my connection between the physical and the spiritual, right? And in looking at the problems that I have working remotely, design something that really speaks to those problems and have attracted people that like this solution. So we were looking for a name for this. And Laura and I were on our honeymoon a couple of years ago. We were in Bali, going to the yoga barn and doing like yoga in Bali. It's kind of the cliche, but it was our honeymoon. You do these things, right? So we're there, and I was talking to Laura. I was like, you know what? I'm struggling to find a good name for what we do, because I don't want to call it like, Focus App 14, like Distraction Mate 12. I hate all those names. And I said, what if I spoke to a couple of our power members in these early days and asked them, like, what is interesting about what we do? They're outside the bubble. They can probably see me better than I can see myself, right? So I talked to one of them, and this guy blew my mind because I asked such dumb questions. I was probing around, being like, well, is it the music? Do you like the music? Like, we have 1,000 hours of like original music, certain key signatures that are better for flow, 60 to 90 beats per minute, non-vocal, melodics, or something. Is it, the smart assistant that helps you with your tasks? Is it the task manager you like? What is it? So at the end of like 10 minutes, he was very nice. He answered my questions, but it wasn't really conclusive. And I was like, I really appreciate your time. He said, you know what? I think the question that you wanted to ask me is different. Okay. What's the question that I wanted to ask you? And he said, you wanted to ask me, why do I pay you?
Good question.
Okay. Probably more bold than I would have asked it. But I was like, okay, that's a really good question. What's the answer? He said, at 3:00, I can be playing with my kids. Or it's 6:00. Maybe like, where the hell did the day go? They said the difference between those two is, did I use your app in the morning? And I was like, wow, okay, I get it. It's not about a particular feature. It's about that we help you get in that flow state. And then you have your time back. It went for him because he has 2 young children. He's like, that's my joy. Is it 3:00 if I be playing with my kids and I'm done with my work? I'm happy. I was talking to Laura that night at dinner. I said, I spoke to this one guy today who said this thing. I was like, that's better than anything I've thought about what it is we actually do. And she said, well, we do a lot of yoga and there's a lot of Sanskrit words you hear over years doing yoga. And Sukha is the concept around like a happiness of self-fulfillment. It's like, I'm doing what I'm meant to do. I'm really good at it. And it feels great. So
can you give more details about how this app will help people to get in their flow? How the app help people who work remotely?
Yeah, I'll tell you, because I designed it around my own problems and then talking to a bunch of friends, like you, being like, hey, you work from home. What are the problems? So I get one problem, and it sounds so simple, but it's a big one, is that first moment of getting started. I found that I would procrastinate. Sometimes I'd look at my task list. I would feel overwhelmed. I'd be like, where do I start? Maybe there are too many things on it. Or maybe the first thing on it was like, oh God, I didn't know where to start. It's so big, right? So I would procrastinate. I'd be like, well, you know what? I didn't do the dishes from dinner. I'm going to quickly do the dishes, or I'm going to throw in a load of laundry, or I'm going to, take out my phone and check my email. So I would procrastinate, right? So we thought about that a lot. We're like, okay, there are some principles that apply here. And I, read the books by all the smart people, right? The Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's book on flow and clear and Newport's deep work and super smart people have thought about this problem for a very long time. So there's one school of thought that was like, eat the frog, which is that Mark Twain expression about like, find the hardest thing you have to do it first, that momentum, right? And I think that works for some people. It doesn't work for me. And this is one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to have our app learn how you work best and then help you with that, as opposed to be just like a cookie cutter, like everyone must do this thing this way. So we have a smart assistant.
It's not a stick for everyone.
Right. So for example, I learned that the thing that really helps me get going is I choose 1 or 2 things I can do in like 10 or 12 minutes. And getting those 2 done and crossed off my list gives me this feeling of momentum. And then I can do the really hard thing that's like sitting there for an hour. So when you open, Sukha in the morning, there's a smart assistant who looks at your task list with you. And if you have something on there that's ridiculously large, like we have a number of book authors that write, using the app to help them focus. If your first task is like, write the book, you're not going to get that done today. Right?
General.
Yes. So they will look at that and say, hey, maybe a more achievable goal is, do you want to outline your first chapter? And as soon as you have that thought of like, oh, well, I already have some thoughts about that when I was driving yesterday. So that smart assistant helps you break it down into things where you can actually get started and organize it and just say, let's just choose 3 things. You can't actually in your session have more than 3 tasks for that very reason that it starts to become overwhelming. And I like looking at just 3 things going, I can totally do that. I can get that done before lunch and it feels great. So there are things like that we do that really start with, what's the problem? Oh, the problem is I procrastinate or I get overwhelmed when I look at to start in the morning. And we're like, what's the best way to solve that? We'll have the smart assistant who sort of helps you create a really organized, easy way to start. And
But
then, we have other things too.
but how so maybe the app gives you some suggestions, but how do you ensure that the person who uses the app actually use those suggestions and don't procrastinate farther,
Do
right?
you ever procrastinate, Daniela?
No, I'm not.
I do. I'm totally
No,
guilty.
but I'm thinking because if you don't want to do something, you will not do that thing. If an app tells you that you should do something, it's not certain 100% that you'll actually follow those advice. So
It is very true.
so what are the mechanisms to convince the person to actually do the things that they have to do?
So what we believe is that inside all of us, there's the ability to do what we need to do. But sometimes we have obstacles to do that, right? I always talk about my overwhelm turns into procrastination. So one of the things that we like to do is our smart assistant notices your pattern. Like suppose 2 days ago, you got your entire to-do list done by like 2 p.m. Like the guy I was talking to was like at 3 o'clock, I'm playing with my kids. It's great. I've gotten all my work done for my job, right? So suppose the smart assistant notices, hey, on Wednesday, you killed it. It will look at what were the constituent parts of your doing that and say, oh, you know what? I've noticed that when you listen to this playlist, like I mentioned, we have like 1,000 hours of music designed scientifically, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it'll say, it seems like the days you listen to like this ambient atmosphere or this sonic caffeine or this lo-fi, it seems to get you in a flow state. Do you want me to put that on for you today? Right? It seems like days when you start with tasks that we estimate are like 15-minute tasks, you seem to be done earlier in the day. Maybe there's something about that ramping of the momentum, which is very true of me, right? Or it may say, hey, you know what? Your best day is the day you do the hour-and-a-half task first, and then you just coast on the momentum. You just knock things out after that. Why don't I organize your task list like that? So that's really what we want people to enjoy, is that feeling of like, oh man, this is like learning about how I work best and helping me to optimize that.
So in a way, this app help you to be aware of your patterns and how you work best. Yes, it's very interesting.
Yeah, and optimize your best patterns, and see, like, if, for example, something. I'm talking a lot about how bad I am, right? But sometimes when I have a problem, like I'm coding something, and I just come up on the, oh, why isn't this working? I will open some sort of video app. I'll be like, I'm just take 5 minutes, clear my head. I'll open up YouTube or TikTok or something, and that 5 minutes turns into 20 minutes. Let's be honest, right? And as the app learns that sort of thing, the smart assistant will say like, hey, it feels like you're stuck in this. Hey, do you want to go, like, maybe we just bang out this little task. Like, you need to write that email to so-and-so. Why don't we go do that? Give your brain a little rest on this. And then we'll come back to the hard coding thing where it's not compiling. So it's those little things. Like, imagine, there's a great story I heard. And I hope this resonates with your audience, but it was a guy talking about his grandfather. And he said, I remember when I was little, my grandfather and grandmother would be sitting at the breakfast table, and they wouldn't talk a lot. They were in their 70s, whatever they were, 80s. They wouldn't talk a lot. But every now and then, my grandfather would pick up the butter and put it right in front of grandmother, right as she was reaching for it. And it was like a wordless thing, but he knew her that well. And this guy said, I want to have that relationship with my computer. And that is the sense of delight and understanding that we aim to create. It's just that feeling of like, oh, you know what I need right now is this. And it's just right there. It's like staying in when I was in Kyoto, I stayed in an amazing ryokan. And I'm telling you, I don't know how this happened. I know there's an attention to hospitality there. It's insane and it's on a different level. But I was in a very simple ryokan, went to my room, the sliding, screens, futon on the floor, and a tiny, low slung desk. And I remember getting there in the afternoon, checking in, going to my room, it's super quiet. I sat at the desk And I was working on my little, MacBook. And I thought to myself, oh man, I wish I had picked up some water at the, grocery store on the way here. And I'm not kidding. A sliding screen opened up and a woman came out and put a glass of water on my little desk and left and closed the screen. And I was like, how did that happen? How, like, did I say something out loud? Was I mumbling to myself like, oh, I wish I had gotten some water? How did that happen? It was
Mm-hmm.
it was magical, that sense of it. And I don't know whether after you've had 300 guests in your ryokan, you know that after 45 minutes, they love having a glass of water. So you just do that. Whatever it was magical. When I was tired, I remember thinking I should probably go to bed. I've been early. I was doing a speaking engagement at Kyoto University. And I had an early, the talk was early in the morning. I thought I should go to bed. I swear to you, as I was thinking this, sliding screen opened. She came, turned down the bed, and left. And I was like, I've stayed at some very lovely Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons, the one and only. I've never had that attention where I was like, this is magical. And that inspires me to create that experience. Yeah. So we're trying to get there.
Yes, nice story. So coming back to the challenges of remote work, besides things like procrastination, what are other challenges that you encountered in working with your own team?
That is a fantastic question. I'll say this. Another one that I personally wrestled with, and now I've spoken to hundreds of people about this, it's common, is that where did the day go? Where it will be like, oh, wow, I have to go. Like Laura and I are going to dinner or something. I need to go shower and get ready. And I'm like, I feel like I was busy all day. But like the two big things I need to get done are still, maybe after dinner, I'll try and work on them. And I come back from dinner, I'm tired. You know what I mean? That thing of where did the day go? I wanted to solve. And what I found is the solution, again, goes back to that idea of having your smart assistant say, hey, let's set your day up properly. So you start your day correctly. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, it's like dominoes. And when you're in an office, there often is a sense of structure that's given to you. I have been the worker bee in the office. I've been an assistant. When I came up in film, I was the first assistant to the president of Paramount. Amazing job. You meet everyone in the world who comes through the office, right? So I met every star in Hollywood, every director and all that as the assistant, right? Well, the first assistant gets to meet everyone. The second and third assistants are sort of the next room. So does an amazing job. And there's a structure that's enforced upon you. Like at 7 a.m., this will happen. At 7:15, coffee will be ready. At 7:30, the breakfast meeting happens. And it's very rigid. At home, you have to create that or have that created for you. Yes. And that's one of the things we want to solve.
Mm-hmm. But with your team, how do you organize work so you know that they are on track, that they are following what they have to do, and the things are done in time? How do you organize their work so you can have that feeling of trust that things will go well and they will be done?
Yeah, okay, I will tell you, there are two parts to that answer, and they are very simple. Number one, I told you, which is hiring. If you hire someone that believes that they're solving a problem that needs to be solved, that is like 90% of it. Whether it is you are creating an electric vehicle and they believe that this will help the climate and that's important to them. And, their parents had asthma because they lived near a coal plant or something. That is a huge thing where every day they're like, I'm changing the world in a good way because of what I'm doing here, right? So hiring is a huge part of it because you have to find people who are value aligned. The second part is that you think about work as the goal, not about the time. And if you're leading a team and you're like, hey, how are you possibly, why aren't you working more hours? Why aren't you working harder? You have to leap out of that and go, hey, did we accomplish the thing we need to accomplish? And hats off if someone says, yeah, man, at 3:00, I'm playing with my kids. But between like 8 and 3, I killed it. Like I have moved the company forward. I've helped to solve the problems that we set out to solve. So that's the second part of it, is defining work as a goal and letting people share that. And again, if you hire adults, like the goal is we need to stand up our new blog. This is something I'm dealing with right now. It's like, we're going to switch our blog provider, right? And simply saying, we need to look at the available options, do a sort of competitive matrix, figure out what solves the specs that we need, solved. It's about to work. If someone did that in 15 minutes, my hat is off to them. If someone needs a day, that's great. I just want to know that we made the right decision and someone cared. That's what I think.
How frequently do you interact with your team members, and how often do you check their work to see where they are?
So a lot, because it's when you're not in the office, I think it's important to have like open lines of communication. So if you go a day without talking to someone, it's easier to drift. So we used Slack a lot because it's a very lightweight messaging tool. I mean, let's be honest, Slack is basically iChat, iMessage dressed up for business. You can post emojis, you can make it fun to interact with people. It's just, it's a great way to stay in a lightweight conversation. So we have channels that are very serious about, hey, the build's going out, the bugs that are being fixed. We have other channels that are just like funny stuff. Like you would say to someone if they're sitting next to you in the office, like, oh my God, did you see this thing today? And it recreates those the soft bonds that make you feel like, oh, these are my people. Because like I said, we spend a lot of our time working, and you want to be around people you respect and that you enjoy.
Do you have a large team? How many members do you have in the team?
I have been very lucky that we have, in addition to like the full-time people working together with me, we've had a number of members who are, remember, developers. There are a number of engineers that are in our membership that have contributed code, that have said, hey, I was thinking about a feature. Wouldn't it be cool if, the Sukha had this way you could have a leaderboard and see how other people are doing? Yeah, it would be cool. Like, we're really busy right now. You know what? If you give me access to the repo, I'd like to try building it, and we could see how it works. So we have a number of contributors that are just like awesome people who are like, I have an idea, and but it all comes down to that thing of, if someone believes the problem being solved is important to them, they'll do it. It's not about all the other incentives. The other incentives are important. You need to make money. You need to like have shares of the company you're building, all that. But the fundamental thing is, you can't incentivize someone who just doesn't care about what the company does. If you hired me at an oil and gas company, I would suck. I would be the worst employee, because I'm like, I don't even want to work here.
Right, it's not your field. I'll ask you about the number of your team members, because I think that there are differences when you have a small team. You can interact, you have the time to interact with them. But if you have a larger remote team, like, I don't know, 50 people or more, it's harder, and probably there are different strategies or methods to interact with them. So you don't ignore some members and interact just with some of them.
You are totally right. And, they're only just like, do you know what Dunbar's number is? Have you heard Dunbar's number? Dunbar's number was this concept that there are only a certain number of people you can actually stay in contact with, right? And I think this number is around 150.
Yes, I remember. I didn't know the name, but I know the concept, yes.
Right. So that was the concept. And it's interesting because, like, the same way Facebook wanted people to connect with everyone, they made it a game to like connect people because they wanted to have all these, relationships. There was another app called Path a few years ago, like probably 5-10 years ago. There was, you can only have 150 connections, because beyond that, these are not people you actually stay in contact with. You don't have a real day-to-day thing, right? So what you're bringing up is, yeah, with a team of like 10 people, everyone can talk to everyone every day. It's not hard to say hi and, exchange the information with 10 people. But you're right. Once you get to larger teams, 50 people, 100 people, 200 people, not everyone's talking to everyone. And then you do have, obviously, teams within the larger team, the organization, right? So I think humans naturally gravitate towards that same number of people with whom they can have a work relationship. You're not going to be friends with 50 people at work. You're probably going to be friends with a dozen. And by friends, I mean in warm communication, like we're in the same area. Something that is also interesting is the way organizations are becoming flatter. right? Middle management
Yeah.
is being compressed out because you have now the leverage we have through technology for individual contributors to contribute more. So you don't have to have the same like 7-tiered sort of structure.
Mm-hmm.
You might have like an individual contributor that's only like 3 or 4 layers away from the CEO, of an organization, not like a little company like mine. So that is interesting because you start to create small organizations that leverage whether it's LLMs or some sort of generative AI or other techniques that allow you to do more with a flatter org, and then you have less problems of communication. Because it's true, with 1,000 people, communication problems are way more hard, way more difficult than 50 people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking? You have a thought?
Yes, so I think that having a remote team, it's better for the team members because they can reach anyone in the team, including the top manager, and they don't have to go through some hierarchy to task with them. They don't have to go uh, to close doors. So it's more easy, and they can communicate what they want directly with the person that they are interested in. But it's not a danger for the top manager not to. Um, so if we have a large remote team, how can we create identity? How can we create a unity? Because if when we work in an office, we see each other, we interact with each other. Even if we don't work, we can meet at the lunch break, or we can have other occasions. But in this type of work, these opportunities are not there. How can an entrepreneur create this unity if they have more than 20 employees or something like this?
So this goes back, I think, to the beginning of our conversation, which is being remote and the acknowledgement that remote work can work adds a color to your palette, but there are other colors on that palette. So there is a way to manage on a day-to-day basis people who are remote, and you have communication tools to keep people together, whether you're in Teams or you're in Slack, you do Zoom stand-ups, that sort of thing. But I do not think that it's possible to just never meet each other in real life. Like, I think there's something about the team bonding of like, hey man, we all have this shared memory together of what it's like to be around each other. There is something up, and I'll tell you an example in my life is when we went through the pandemic. I think I mentioned I have a daily yoga practice. I had it for over a decade now. And Laura, my wife, pointed out to me, she's like, well, you know what? We could get an iPad and you could do yoga on the living room, carpet, And it's not the same to me. The poses are exactly the same. A lot of our favorite instructors have YouTube videos. You can go and play their video, and it is exactly what you will do in class. But the energy of being in a room of other people, all trying to do something together, there is no other thing like that. You can't do that on Zoom. You can't do that over YouTube. You can't do that in that way. And I think that there is a need, like even with our small team, there's a need sometimes to be like, hey man, even if it's going to dinner, it doesn't have to be, oh, we're all going, to some resort conference center, and we're going to do trust falls in the forest, and we're going to do slacklining, and there's a thing for retreats like that, and there was a big business in it. But there is something about just like feeling each other's vibe, and it brings you together. Like, I'll tell you, one of the things we designed in Sukha is there's a coffee shop. We call it the coffee shop. It is a chat essentially where you can see, if you want to turn on your camera, you can have a little, static photo every, like, I think we do every 6 to 10 seconds. We just take a photo of you so people can see, oh, here are people around the world working. You can kind of not see them in motion, but see a representation of them. You can chat, you can share stuff. And it was really, for me, like that sense of community that carries you forward, which is very important to me. And I'll tell you, recently there's an administrator of a school system in Missouri. I don't know him. His name is Roy King, and he's been in our platform for a year or two. and he's been working on his dissertation to get his doctorate. And last week, he actually had to go defend his dissertation. And people had seen him in there for a year working on this. You know, he's very much camera on, social facilitation kind of guy. And on Monday, when he went to defend his dissertation, people around the world post in the group chat like, Roy, you can do it. Roy, we're here for you. Man, you're the hardest worker we know. You know, you inspire all of us. And I know, because I run the platform, none of these people know him. They are just random people around the world who are members of Sukha that see him get inspired. And I was talking to someone about this yesterday, a few days ago now, who said to me, I thought this is an amazing phenomenon. I was like, on Monday, like this guy got this outpouring of support going, go, do it, do it. And by the way, he got his doctorate. He is now Dr. Roy King. Super proud of him. She said this to me. She said, I can go to Nike and they will sell me a pair of shoes. They'll sell me a left and a right shoe. I put on my feet. I can go run. About 100 million people belong to the Nike Run Club.
Yes, so this platform is a platform that also can create a community that supports the members. But if a company doesn't have or doesn't use this app, do you advise them to have in-person meetings to meet with each other, to know them better, and to create a deeper connection? Do you do this with your team members?
As much as we can. But remember, it's easier for me because we have a small team. If I had a team of 50, that starts to become logistically a different, different sort of question. So I encourage it, but I also recognize that it can be hard logistically for some teams. And then maybe you just want to do smaller teams, like, hey, you know what? All the developers are going to go and do some fun, whitewater rafting one weekend, or all the designers are going to do this, or all this, the BD or the salespeople are going to do something. Like, I think there has to be that thing where in real life you go, oh no, I've totally hung out with Danielle. Like, she's super fun. Like, we were whitewater rafting together that Saturday. And you remember that for weeks or months later, that feeling of just like, when I almost fell in and you grabbed my life jacket, you're like, Steven, don't go in. I was like, I love her. She like stopped me from going in the river, You don't get that from Slack. There's no emoji that I'm going to post on your post that's going to make you feel that way.
But do you think that in general, not only your team members, but in general, do you think that remote employees are open to meet each other and spend time? Because some of them may be reluctant to this idea, may not be open to give their time for this. Because if you go somewhere, you will spend not only your working time more than this, because probably you have to be there at night also. So
you're exactly right. When you lead any team, you have to understand the individuals on the team, and there's not a blanket leadership. I definitely would. The answer to your question of like, do I believe there's value in being in person? I absolutely do. There's something about like vibing in the room, and I've seen it in film, I've seen it in technology. There's something about that, right? Do you need to be sensitive to if you have someone on your team who's more introverted or shyer, or maybe has childcare needs, or like, I can't take off a Saturday to go whitewater rafting, I'm a single dad or something, like, you have to be sensitive to those things. So you're absolutely right. It's not a one size fits all, but I think as a general principle, I do support there's something about just being in person with someone that you will remember the feeling.
And do you have other tips, other advice for entrepreneurs with remote works, how they can create this unity of their team if they don't have this opportunity to meet or they meet in person but not so often? How can they maintain that unity and create some boundaries, connections between team members? Because as a leader, maybe you talk with your team, but you don't know if they are talking with each other, or maybe they are talking with some of the team members, but not with all the team. So maybe they create one or two connections and the rest is off.
Yes. So there is something, it's going to sound really odd for me to say this, But a friend of mine at Amazon told me about this 10 years ago or something. And I thought it was brilliant in its own weird way, even though it comes from Amazon. Okay, so don't judge. I know we're very judgy. I'm just going to say this
I'm not.
idea.
I
Okay, I'm
don't
just
have
saying this
any.
idea. No, okay, good. There's a lot of, trust me, in the United States, there's a lot of discussion around oligarchs and large companies and stuff. So all I'm saying is this thing that he said on my team, and within Amazon, they did this, is when we start a project or building a feature or something like that, we start by writing the press release as if it's done. And we haven't done it yet, but we start writing like, today, Amazon launched its 1 day, same day delivery thing, da, 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 and with this one button click, you can order this thing. And I thought that was really interesting to say, okay, so you start by already envisioning the success of the team. And the thing I'll add to that, to answer your question, is I really enjoy when you have made that press release real. And I've done this in my companies. When you actually reach that point where you're like, oh, we did ship the thing with the same day delivery and the one button that remembers your address and your credit card, right? To celebrate and feel in your body that win and have people go around on the team and talk about what someone else did. So rather than my saying like, oh my God, I did such a great job building, the API that did the thing, da, 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 rather to say, hey, Steven, give us one thing. And I'll say, you know what? Danielle did an amazing job building that API, already planning every way in which this could break because of connectivity issues or people on mobile, da, da, da. And that was a huge part of this. And that bonds you and me together because ultimately we all want to be seen, right? We want to be seen by our children, by our parents, by our partners, by our friends. We want to be seen for, who we are. And to have that sense of like Danielle going home saying, wow, man, in front of everyone, Steven acknowledged, like, I spent a lot of time on those APIs to make sure they were not brittle. I feel seen by my team. That really bonds you together. It also reduces churn. I'll tell you this, if you want to retain employees, one of the biggest things is if you have hired well, you have a good team, is make sure that they feel seen, that they're like, I go home tonight knowing, or I'm at home tonight knowing my team recognizes what I do and that I'm good at it. That feels great.
So the leader has an important role in this to make the team members being seen and appreciated when they do a good job. And when they don't, but when it's an opportunity there. And
I think bad news or bad feedback you do privately. Publicly, it's a great place to be like, Danielle did an amazing job with the APIs, but privately,
I didn't refer to negative feedback, but maybe from even if you don't have a reason, you can also showcase a person. You can also show recognition, and maybe the leader can also make connections between team members and encourage those connections.
Agreed.
Okay.
It's been quite a little talk today.
Yes, we are going to the end of this discussion. Do you have something to add? Do you think that are some critical parts of working remotely that we didn't speak about that we should?
I will tell you this. I am not a guru. I'm not the smartest person in the room. I am someone who has experienced the challenges of working from home and working remotely. I have searched for solutions for myself, and I want to share what I've learned. So if there is anything that I've picked up, it's stuff we shared today, stuff in our blog, stuff in our platform that's helpful. That's my sense of being seen, where it's like, oh man, you know what? I heard this guy talk on this podcast and I looked at what he did. And it's actually helped me at 3:00 be playing with my kids instead of being, frustrated at the end of the day. Where did the day go? So all I can say is I'm trying really hard to create something of value. There are parts of it I think that work great. The other parts of it I work on every day to make better. I hope what I've shared is valuable. I think we've talked about you asked a lot of good questions. And
you give good answers.
I would try my best. it is not, I don't have any other friends that have seen how film works from development and production, the marketing, the distribution, release. And I've also run tech companies. And having seen both worlds, it is remarkable to me how many lessons go between them. And I just want to share that.
I didn't ask you what made you make this shift between the film industry and tech industry.
I can tell you it's a very short answer. It is Die Hard 5. I was the executive at Fox. Yeah. So I was at 20th in the feature film, the live action division. And I was the executive who oversaw the Die Hard franchise, the Wolverine franchise, stuff like that. And we were going to make Die Hard 5. It was a film that, I was running for the studio. This is not a franchise I started. This is just one where you are the shepherd for this period of time. You're the guy or the girl who oversees it, right? So let's be clear. The chair was there before me and the chair was there after me. And I remember the impetus to make Die Hard 5 was high. The studio knew how to do the projections of what it would earn, regardless of what the script was about. It was just this many people will show up because they want to see Bruce Willis do the John McClane thing. So when you have that kind of pressure going, like, it doesn't have to be good. It just has to be made cheaply. Oof. And I remember having a very honest conversation with my boss, who was the chairman of Fox Film and Entertainment. And he was very clinical about, this is how much money we'll make. And he's like, doesn't matter if there's film in the can. Like this, we do box office projections, and this is what it is. So just make it for less than this. And I thought to myself, I'm going to wake up, be 40, 50 years old and tell my kids, Daddy's got to go to the office, make Die Hard 11 so that we can pay for your college. And I don't know if there's any nobility in that, or I don't think there's any sense of I was solving a problem in the world. It was a glamorous job. I mean, when you're a senior executive at a studio, a lot of people are like, wow, all these actors and directors, and you go to all these premieres and fly to film festivals and stuff like that. True. But at the end of the day, it's soap. It's maybe more glamorous soap. It's soap where it's like you have, the ability to get almost anyone on the phone. Like you could call even someone in the government, and when they hear like, oh, it's an executive vice president at DreamWorks, they're like, well, let's see who he wants, and you can do that. But at the end of the day, I was like, are my kids really going to be like, oh, dad, congratulations on, Wolverine 5, where he comes back from the dead the second time, And I got out. I was like, I need to do something more meaningful. And this year I'm going to have my first child. So this is a very germane sort of topic for me of like, I think a lot about what will my son and eventually my daughter in a couple of years think about, did dad change the world in any meaningful way, or did he just collect a paycheck? So
you were searching for meaning in your work.
I want to do something that helped the world. I honest to God, don't think that Die Hard, the first Die Hard is a fantastic movie. Like it is a brilliant movie. I could talk for hours about how it works internally. I can't say the same of Die Hard 5. And that was the one that in a sense broke me. I was like, wow, the idea I had of what my job would be like when I got to this level, and I'm here now. Oof. I was envisioning a different film industry, one from maybe 10, 20 years earlier, not the film industry of the 2010s, so I got out.
And do you feel that now you are at the right place, that you are doing what you should do?
Yeah, I'll say this. When my life has been on track, I can tell because of one thing. I wake up before my alarm.
Oh.
It is just that sense of like, I wake up and I'm like, oh man, the day's going to start. And I can roll over, turn off my alarm and get going. And the days when I'm hitting snooze, life's not on the right track.
Yes, it's a good indicator. Yes.
That is it. That is a litmus test. If I'm like hitting snooze a lot, it means
you don't want to wake up. You don't want to do what you have to do.
Yeah.
In that bed. Yes. Okay, Steven, thank you very much.
I hope it's been helpful.
Yes, sure. How can people learn more about your app and about your work, about your company?
That is very sweet of you to ask. My company. Anyone can try what we do for free for a while. There's a free trial, no credit card, no funny business. You can just try it because I want people who need it to experience it. So they can find it. My company is called the Sukha Company. The website is Sukha, which is SUKHA.co for company, the Sukha Company. So people can go there. There's a blog if they want to read some of these ideas around flow states, around distraction, around energy, binaural beats, like all sorts of stuff. There's a blog with a ton of stuff on it. And if anyone really wants to talk personally and be like, hey, man, I need some help in a certain way, my email is pretty public. It's just steven@thesukha.co. So I'd love to help. This is an opportunity I have to actually give back to the world. And, if someone wants to access me, I'm available.
Yes, I will put all this data on the show notes so people can access it. Thank you very much, Steven.
Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. The same.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you found value in this podcast, one way to support us is by subscribing. I appreciate you listening and look forward to bringing you more valuable episodes. See you next time.